ride with me in my foul life.
And just like that, I know y'all have been so excited for the next episode to be released. I'm excited for this one. They've been so awesome so far. I love this time of year when we get the Bible of duck and goose hunters delivered in our mailboxes on our newsstands. They're in duck lodges and bathrooms all over the country as we speak. We're back with another Fowl Life podcast episode for the 2021 Wildfowl Giant Gear Issue. And as always, I have my unbelievable co-host, editor-in-chief of Wildfowl Magazine, Skip Knowles, joining us today. Skip, are you excited today to talk about ammo and choke tubes, part of that shooting system that we discussed with Chad Mendez and George Thompson from Benelli USA? Are you excited, Skip Knowles?
I'm a real geek about this stuff. A lot of guys try and like pick one choke, go, okay, I'm good, one system, one ammo, but I get to test them all the time. And I really see how much of an impact they make, man. We'll talk more about that later, but I can't believe the elite hunters that I've seen disregard chokes and ammunition combinations. Some really good hunters who just kind of disregard it when I find it so critical to your success, especially if you're going to play around and sub gauges or anything like that.
Yeah, let's not forget, Skip, that we're taking the responsibility of aiming a loaded weapon at a live animal and taking that animal's life. We should do it with dignity and respect. In my opinion, we do not want to ever see an animal suffer. Cripples are going to happen. That's why we have conservation tools like a great Labrador Retriever or whatever dog breed you choose. But using the right shooting system ensures that you're going to pattern that gun, you're going to be on target, you're going to have confidence in it, and you're going to understand what that gun and shooting system can do at different yardages, different winds, different weathers. There's a lot of things that go into it. And we have two masters of this on the show today. They've been here before on several occasions. The reason that we brought these two in is because they understand the system. Now, look, there's a lot of manufacturers that make ammo. There's a lot of manufacturers that build choke tubes. It's to each their own. We want to simply educate our listening audience and our viewing audience on YouTube of what is out there and what are some of the ideologies and beliefs when it comes to this shooting system. We touched on it with George Thompson and Chad Mendez on our shotgun episode, but today we bring in Dan Compton from Federal Premium, Black Cloud, the best in my opinion, but again, it's up to the consumer. We just simply want to give you some insight on what is out there, what's available today as you visit your local retailer as ammo becomes more and more readily available. We know we've struggled with it over the last 15 months, but I think that we're starting to see a surge coming out of it. We'll let Mr. Dan Compton talk about that. Dan, City of Compton, what's up, my brother?
Hey, how you guys doing?
How are you?
I'm doing well. Yeah, it's a common question. I just worked the Grand American trap shoot and it's probably what first on everyone's mind is where is the ammo? And I can tell you that the people at Federal are cranking it out as fast as they possibly can. And it does appear to be that there could be a light at the end of the tunnel coming up here pretty soon. So you really gotta, the days like in the past, you can just go to the store, buy what you want 2 days before the hunt. Now that you just got to be really vigilant and you got to be planning ahead of time and hitting your regular gun store as often as possible and checking online to get as much as you can. But we're doing the best we can to get shells out there for the duck hunters in the fall.
Well, we appreciate the efforts and the expertise and the professionalism and the transparency and honesty, Dan Compton, because it is what it is. And we know that manufacturers like Federal Premium are doing everything they can to take care of hunters and shooters alike across the country, across the world, our military, our first responders. It's not like your retail centers or dealers or hunters like myself or Rob or Skip are your only concern or your only customer. You guys are building ammo as fast as you can, but keeping that quality and that attention to detail there. Same with our other guest, because his surgeon business is through the roof, and it's because of this and this only. It's just the best there is. I mean, when you have a shooting system that is reliable and gives you that confidence that your gun is going to operate when those ducks or geese or whatever game you're pursuing, it might be a coyote charging, it might be a big gobbler in Kansas all fanned out over your decoy. You don't want anything to go wrong. You definitely don't want the trigger to pull and the gun to go off and the black powder to activate the BBs and come out of your barrel and then not be patterned right to where you're not on target. And this man has created a system that I've visited his place in Arkansas. I have been shooting his system for 7 years in a row. And I will promise people, again, you got to do what you got to do and buy what you want to buy. But when you have somebody like Rob Roberts that has dedicated his life to the shooter and the shooting system, I'm not going any further. Rob Roberts, thank you for what you do. And most of all, thank you for being here today from Arkansas, my man.
Well, that's quite an introduction for sure. And I do appreciate the good words. Yeah, with everything going on, just like he said, these guys are working as hard as they can to get the ammo out there. It's not like they're just, it's some kind of conspiracy theory for them to make more money. That's not the point. On a good note to what they are doing up there at Federal is they've got their custom shop coming. So they're actually working on new products, even though they've got the other products running as hard as they can go. There's still more and more coming. And with what's coming, it's a whole new ballgame. I mean, some of this stuff, with shot like TSS and everything coming up, this is really cool stuff to be playing with. And like I said, as long as they can keep people working, products are going to be out, and there's a lot of stuff that people are really going to be wanting to try this year.
Yeah, between all of our brands here, between Federal, CCI, Spear, and now Remington has joined the fold, and Heavy Shot. So we got a big piece of the ammunition industry. I think we've hired over 1,000 people. So that's 1,000 American jobs in a down economy, to do everything we can to bring the shells out there. And Rob, you had a good point on the custom shop. Custom shop gives us an opportunity where it's like a dedicated cell where we literally have 3 to 4 guys at all times hand loading products for people. And then whether that's shot shell or rifle, and we're trying to get to the point where you can send your rifle and we'll match it and pattern it for you and potentially get that for a shotgun as well. And we're going to have 2 new loads that we're offering on our website and through a dealer program that we work exclusively with Rob on for a 20 gauge number 7 TSS and a 28 gauge number 7 TSS as well. And, we can talk a little bit about the details and why we went into that. But yeah, it's pretty exciting to do. But it just shows that we're doing everything possible. We really got guys running hand loaders, to the highest level quality just to get products out the door.
Dan, let me ask you this real quick. I know Skip's just over there just geeking out like crazy. It makes me wonder, how did our grandparents or our great grandpas and grandmas ever harvest an animal? And what I mean by this is you always hear, man, I wish I would have been around during the golden years. I wish I'd have been around during the heyday of duck hunting. To me, that's now, okay? We have birds in the flyways, the conservation efforts. We have farming techniques in agriculture. Then you go to the gear. We've talked about the evolution of gear and the technology that's going into everything from a pair of waders to boots, of keeping us in the field longer, keeping us drier and warmer, to guns that are state of the art. And now you start geeking out on this ammo in these custom shops, and Rob's geeking out on the choke tubes. What is it that drives companies like Federal to keep advancing? Because isn't this good enough? Isn't Black Cloud good enough? But then we went to TSS, and now we combine it with what guys like Rob Roberts are doing with his shooting systems and his choke tubes and everything he does at his custom shop. Why is it? What drives these brands to keep being innovative? Do we need more to be a better duck hunter? What is the end goal here, Dan? I know that kind of sounds like, well, of course we're going to keep innovating, but come on, man. We have the best of the best that's ever been in the history of the hunting culture. Why keep going and moving forward?
I've asked that question before, and you get asked like, what new can be done in ammo? Because it's just a shotgun shell or whatever. And I don't think at Federal, I don't think it's ever going to be good enough. I don't think we've ever hit the pinnacle of what could possibly be achieved. Now, good enough to some hunter and waterfowl may be different than good enough to a turkey hunter because they're looking at different things. But I've been on the product team almost close to, I think, 10 years now, starting this summer. And even like for my first couple of weeks when I sat in meetings and we're talking about the new directions going forward, I was amazed that we didn't sit back on our laurels more. Coming from sales, where you're talking, selling some of the, product, we try to have a leading product in every category out there. And you're selling with confidence over competitors because we feel we have that in almost everything across the board. And I was surprised at what level of criticism we had on ourselves to keep pushing, to keep driving and say, what's going to be the next thing? So there's always going to be a next thing. And we are in some areas, if you got your bell curve of performance and this is where the average is, we are going way out to the fringe to get better. Because that's where we're at now. It's the ammo, gun systems, whether that's rifles, shotguns, handguns, everything is so technically advanced. It really is about systems. And, I think the last time we talked about that as well. So that's why, we're going to keep pushing the envelope on the product. But the next step is working with guys like Rob or Benelli or whoever to come up and make that system as best as possible so that ammo is doing everything it can, but the delivery mechanism is doing everything it can as well.
And Rob, on the same lines, Mr. Rob Roberts, Custom Gun Works. When you hear Dan Compton talk like that, I've called you, I don't know, 100 times in the last 24 months. I'm going to say 2 years, and told you, dude, this T2 is amazing. Like, I have not got performance out of my shooting system like this. I'm so deadly at 30 yards and in, which is like what we like ducks and geese decoying. But when I say deadly, I mean deadly. Like, I'm talking standing up and no necks up running around the decoys, dogs just bringing back dead birds. And that's important to me. How do you answer that question, Rob Roberts, of like, well, yeah, the T1, T2, and T3 are fantastic, but we're going to advance just like Federal's doing. Is this fair to say, Rob, that you're on the innovative edge and the cutting edge of technology, that you want to better the system as well?
Yes, we have. Matter of fact, and we're actually sitting on a choke tube right now that we've went in, and you've noticed over the years, for 15 years, we've had the same choke system. And what we've always went is to find out what gun likes what choke, and then you're kind of done. So what we try to do on the innovation side is we keep trying to do better. Well, actually, we've got it designed what is doing just a little bit better, but we're sitting on this new product because of the new products coming out, just like on this custom shop from Federal. We're finding these loads are so phenomenal. They keep getting better and better and better. So what we want to do is we've sit back to wait before we release this new thing that we're on top of the game. But, it does, as far as some of that stuff, there's no such thing as having too much fun, So we do, and we are Americans, we do try to go just to the, if a car runs 250 miles an hour, we want it to run 255 miles an hour. But getting back to that is we do stay on top because we are trying to find what is better. And right now, we're still hitting where we were, and it's kind of tough to do something that you've been doing for 15 years that's working. You don't want to go in and drastically change anything. So we've spent several weeks going back and forth, just trying, like a new choke, for example, different lengths, different parallel sections, ported, non-ported, all kinds of things. We do this continuously, and we're still right where we need to be. Like I said, we'll have a new thing coming shortly, but not to be talked about right now. But we're kind of waiting to see everything settle in before we bring it to a head.
Skip, when you hear Dan and Rob Roberts talk the way they're talking, do you visualize, Skip, you understand the art of visualization. I've always accounted for in athletics. Ted Williams, one of the greatest hitters of all time, last Major League Baseball player to ever hit 400, wrote a book called The Science of Hitting. Chapter 3 or 4 in that book, when I read it, was the art of visualization. Picture the pitch. Is it a slider? Is it going to be down and in? Where's it going to be in the hitting zone? Is it going to be a fastball on the outside of the half? Do I got to let the ball carry deeper into the hitting zone and let the ball get deep and hit it where it's pitched? You're in the on-deck circle and you're visualizing this account that's getting ready to happen. In hunting, I try to apply the same thing, Skip Knowles. I picture the hunt the night before. I just scouted. The roost is over here. The sun's going to be doing this. The wind's going to be doing this. The temperature's going to be doing this. Is there going to be frost on the decoys? What's going to happen when the sun hits the decoys and it gets light on it? We always get in a rush. Oh my gosh, that group didn't do it right away. So we get up and panic and move the decoy spread. No, just relax, visualize. The sun's going to come up. It's going to make everything so beautiful and more realistic and legitimate to the live birds approaching your decoy spread. I try to use visualization in everything I do, Skip. So my question to you is, when you hear Dan and Rob talk the way they're talking, do you visualize yourself taking your gun out of the case, the correct choke tube in there that that you've been practicing with. The patterning's been done. The ammo has been selected. Do you go this far when you talk about geeking out, Skip Knowles? Do you visualize when you hear this? Are you just painting this picture in your head like I am?
Oh man, like you said, I'm a very visual person. That's why I got in the magazine business to begin with. But I have systems that I'm completely confident in. They're just amazing and they're proven. And I'm a total believer in chokes and loads. Me and Terry Denman were smacking coyotes repeatedly. I wouldn't even say this on camera. Terry wouldn't say it on camera. I hate to even say it but it was on TV. We filmed it. You can go watch it. We killed multiple coyotes over 90 yards with 12 gauges with BBs, and it was that super murderous new Apex tungsten stuff. And I mean, we were having to hold like at the top of a coyote's back, or if he's facing us, on his head, because it was literally dropping. It was at those kind of ranges. Terry is an engineer, and he wouldn't say it on camera, but he'd walk it off, and he's professionally trained to do so. And he was like, he'd turn to the camera and go like, well, Skipper, that was about over 80 yards. And he'd walk back by. I'm like, how far was it really? It was 99 and a half. And I'm like, you don't do that without knowing your chokes and loads. Now that's extreme. We don't encourage people to shoot at ducks over 35 yards ever, but the technology is there. That's just to show what can happen. And if you can visualize, instead of just grabbing a shotgun with the chokes that came with it, if the gun doesn't like them, but to go out there and pick one, it's just an amazing thing. And it's fun to play around with different shot sizes. With that particular Apex load, we ran out of the BBs and we're killing big 35-pound Mexican coyotes with number 4s in that tungsten. The physics changed because the shot size is so small, there's less drag on it. It's always been like buckshot has the most retained inertia and energy. It's not necessarily true with some of this crazy new super dense stuff. And you get so much more pattern density and penetration. There's so much to it. Visualization, though, I'll try and wrap this up. I'm lucky I work in the outdoor sportsman's group, and we own tons of gun magazines, guns and ammo, and we have all these brilliant gun guys who are always visualizing things differently. And every time, even though I have all these proven shotgun and choke systems, I'm always picking them up, wishing they were shorter, lighter, kick less, and there's always room for improvement. And one of the guys from Guns and Ammo, I was criticizing some shotgun shells that were jamming because he's like, well, look at the delivery system. He got me thinking so far outside the box. He goes, it's a plastic hull. It's a little bucket that grows by a 1/2 inch when it's fired. So a 3.5 inch shell becomes a 4-inch empty shell with snaggly plastic frayed ends. He goes, it's a ridiculous system with little plastic boxes we're firing. These things need to have sleek, maybe all brass metallic casings that will cycle flawlessly, and the whole thing needs to change. And I don't know if he's right. And back then I thought he was, but that was 8 years ago. Now everything's become so amazingly efficient. And like I said, what we did with the coyotes and all these delivery systems of chokes and loads, now I don't feel like it's such a bad system after all. But he got me thinking outside the box that the whole delivery system for shotgun shells and shot could change. Smarter, lighter, faster, and more effective somehow. But it would require a giant overhaul, and no one wants to spend that money. But yeah, I visualize stuff all the time, even though we have these epic systems now.
I mean, I could piggyback on that. I mean, we've experimented, and I'm sure Rob has too, on some pretty radical stuff, like all metallics or, shot shells that completely break off at the head. And it's like a 4-piece launching system through the air, and like almost like the whole round goes through the barrel. Now, none of it is, you work on the fringes to be better at the middle, is what we're working on. So, but yeah, I mean, you're always pushing it, and you're right. The function of ammunition, its innovation is limited to the box that we're in. Like, we're limited to this firearm system, and the feeding mechanism is limited by the design of the ammo, and the ammo is only as good as the feeding system and cycling, so we all have to piggyback on each other to try to get better and improve on it. But the next steps, like the next thing in the industry, are going to be, I think it will be something pretty radical to change from where we're at. Shotgun shells started with paper, and then in the 60s they went to plastic, and now plastics, single-use plastic is kind of a buzzword, and a lot of stuff we're working on Federal is looking at, we're going back to paper wad delivery systems and see if we can make that work, so we're not leaving as much plastic out in the field. So, as polymers have changed, it allows technicians, it has allowed the technologies to get better in wads. As machining has become easier and the equipment you use has become more precise, that changes everything. So it's a constant cycle. But like, just to go back right to your first question, Chad, you always got to keep innovating if you want to be relevant, and we want to give the hunter the best possible thing we can, and so we'll just keep digging. When
you start talking about piggybacking, you have a market that is in need of ammo. You have many manufacturers out there that are working their tails off to develop ammo, research, product development, testing, everything that goes into going to market with this. When you hear somebody talk about competition in this space, now I understand how big Federal is and what you've acquired and where you guys are going for the future. I understand some of it. I shouldn't say that I know all of it, but I've learned through you guys some of it. Very exciting. But when you talk about piggybacking, you and Rob, I want you to touch on this, Compton, is how driven are you by competition? Does Federal stay in their lane and you guys are always just coming up with the ideas? Or is there insight of, well, this is being done, should we try this? Because I just don't know how you piggyback off of who. You piggyback off of the guys in your shop that are either in the pro shop, the custom shop, or on your everyday lines that are making the ammo for Federal. How does this happen? How does the innovation keep going? Are you pushed by competition? And is this a good competitive market to be in as far as ammo goes and choke tubes?
Yeah, it's good. Rob, if you don't mind, I'll jump in first.
Go right ahead.
It's a good market to be in a way, because we're so busy and we're selling everything we can possibly make, and that helps drive future funding actually for projects. When your company's doing well, it can help you invest in the future. But a big part, like, just to go right to square one, like my job, I look at the product roadmap across all the usage categories for shotgun and rimfire, and then I look at turkey, I look at upland, I look at waterfowl, personal defense, and where are we within that category with the products we have? And I try to have a good, better, best for everything. We got opening price point for somebody who's hunting on a budget, just likes to shoot volume or whatever, and we try to make that product as best we can. And then we might have a mid-tier one, and we have a premium product, at the top. And I'll look at that and see, so where are the holes? What's Remington doing? What's Winchester doing? What's Heavy Shot doing? And then where does Federal need to be? So that's part of it. The second part is we've gotten a lot of our, you talk about competition, I don't know if it really plays in, but a lot of our ideas have come from outside inventors. Somebody who comes up with an idea in their garage for a wad concept, but they don't necessarily have the injection molding know-how or the funding to go about and take this to the next level and mass produce it. So we try to work with them, say, can you get us a deliverable prototype? The flight control wad is a great example of this. Chris Billings was a man who patented the flight control wad and then brought that to Federal and said, hey, do you want to partner on this? And we did. And Chris was a great resource, and we learned from each other and came out with this great wad, which revolutionized our, I would say the shot shell world, but definitely revolutionize our lineup because it touches almost every category that we have. So when I say piggyback, the next gun system that comes out, whether that's going to cycle a different way or somebody's going to, create a different gas delivery system, whatever, we have to be ready to either capitalize on that, or hopefully we leverage our relationships with the gun companies so that we're in the know and we can come out and do it together.
Wow. Very awesome. Rob, do you consider yourself in the same boat as that, as far as like paying attention to the market, I guess, is the gist of this, right?
Not really. We more like to stay in our own lane. And the reason we get out, and not to say it's right or wrong, in earlier days, you spent so much time worrying about what the other guy does that, you're just going backwards. So we kind of started staying in our own lane, and then we try to take what we're doing, because we do use this. Now, our guys, we all hunt, we go back. To me, being a sportsman, I've said that before, is kill something, kill it hard. Don't wound it, don't go off, kill it, go out there. What we're finding with this new technology, and we've been playing with like the TSS, this real heavy densities type stuff for a while, and doing our own loads, doing everything back there. And what we were noticing is kind of like what Skip was talking about. Pretty soon, you're killing coyotes way out there farther than a shotgun should shoot with smaller shot size, because now instead of the old days where, and I'm old enough that, used to go turkey hunting, you'd use a number 4 because you wanted that shot that hits him and kills him. Well, now you're breaking bones, and so you can put 10,000 little swarms of little bitty bees, and as long as they're hard enough that they're breaking the bone, the game's down. And so I think what we're going to see, we do have a new line of stuff that is coming, but what we're doing is we're playing with these guns and these new loads and this new ammo, and we're finding that these guys are actually able to walk out here with a 28 gauge. Now you don't have the beat and bang and 3.5-inch kicking loads, and you're going out here with a 28 gauge and you're shooting a goose at 50 yards that's folding and going down. And we've been doing some testing here in the last month that we're showing patterns at 45 yards coming out of 28 gauge shotguns. They're just stupid good. It's way stupid good. And so that's part of technology. Now with that comes expense and everything else. And there's a lot of people that are still going to buy, let's pick on Federal. They're going to go down and buy the blue box because they can buy it at Walmart or whatever. It's cheaper. And they're going to go boom, boom, boom. And if that's for you, that's great because it works great. But there's some guys that's, they're getting older, such as myself. You're getting older. I don't want to get beaten, banged. And I really like to take quality shots and enjoy it and go out and kill things. But at the end of the day, you want it dead. And now I think the big trend you're going to see is these sub gauges coming out and these guys where they are getting quick, clean kills with all this new innovation that's coming. And so, yeah, we kind of stay in our lane just to see if we can outdo what we're already doing. And that's where we try to be.
I love that both analogies work very well with where, I feel that the market is going because, one of the questions I've always had, Compton, and I know Skip and I have discussed this amongst the both of our cells in private is, does TSS really sell? Is it needed? And when you shoot it, you're like, yes, this is amazing. My question to you, Compton, is when you come out with a product like TSS, and I know Rob Roberts has been testing TSS for years on his own, what is the customer for this, Compton? And I want your transparency on this. Is it surprising you on the waterfowl side? Because I get turkey. I understand going and buying 5 shells because you might go on 2 hunts all year and you want the best there is, patterning and all that. But when you start talking about a snow goose hunt or a 10 bird limit on Canada geese in California or a 10 bird limit on California specs or wherever you go down to Oklahoma and kill 8 Canadas, you're looking at pretty good pull the trigger, as far as what you're spending each time you pull the trigger. Is it surprising you, with complete transparency, that goose hunters have caught on to the TSS phase?
In terms of accepting the product and accepting it for its knockdown and power, yes. It's not. No, that has not surprised me because, like you said, once somebody shoots it, it's like holy, like wow. I think a good analogy I had was like it felt like we were tearing them from the sky. Like when you first did that test, Chad. That's how Eric Carlson brought it back to me. In terms of the volume of steel versus TSS on the waterfowl side, it's right about where we expected, but we never, I can't even give you a good number. It's a fraction of what we sell in steel today, for like the Black Cloud TSS product we sell. It sells okay and it's good enough to keep in alignment, but we never expected it to be, to overtake what we do in steel sales because it is expensive. And every time you pull the trigger, it's several bucks per round. One of the things that we've really learned from the turkey is that, turkey sales, turkey is one of the best seasons to forecast for because it's very finite. You know exactly when it starts, exactly when it's done. We're done making shells at a certain point, and then we get on to the next year. Orders kept coming in for 410 over the year, 410. We're getting them all summer long and into the fall. And so what we learned from it is that maybe not necessarily in a 12 gauge. And that's why working with Rob and the sub gauge stuff is the trend we're seeing. People who are going smaller, they like either less recoil or they just like the challenge. We've seen that TSS does very well in sub gauge. And I think the recoil is a big part of it, an honest big part of it. And you're getting such, in a turkey load, your 410 number 9 shot is the same equivalent of a number 5 ounce and 3/4 lead in terms of pellet count and energy on target. In a waterfowl load, it's even better because you're getting more pellets than you would in a normal number 2 steel load. So to answer your question, Chad, Has it revolutionized our business? And have we shut down half the factory from steel production to TSS and waterfowl? No, we have not. But we're definitely seeing the sub-gauge trend. In the custom shop, we don't have in our catalog true waterfowl loads other than the Black Cloud TSS, which is a TSS and steel blend on the inside. But in the custom shop, we actually have seen quite an increase in the TSS loading over the last year. Ammo availability might be part of that, because they can go online, they can order it from our website. We'll load it up and ship it to them within 2 weeks typically. But that's the trend we're seeing, definitely sub-gauge.
Skip, I know you are thinking along the lines, we've talked about the sub-gauge revolution with the 410s, the 28 gauges. Amazing. So comfortable to shoot, so easy, so the results are there. I remember a hunt in Idaho with John Shaw at Hagerman Farms. You can't use anything bigger than a 20, but he prefers 28s. And I remember having the ethos out there and the federal ammunition, and just like, wow, like why would you shoot a 12 gauge at a mallard duck? That's kind of like what you start thinking. Like when people are like, I need more 12 gauge, you kind of have to ask yourself, well, why? Well, here's the deal. 12 gauge is the cream of the crop when it comes to waterfowl hunting. We all know that. There's no 10 really anymore. There's people that do use a 20 gauge on some ducks, and I know that there's some diehards that got their 28 gauges out there. There is an insurgence going on. But Rob, tell me, Rob, complete transparency. I know you say, well, the older you get, you might want something a little more comfortable. But does any of this touch the 12 gauge, Rob? Should we shoot anything at ducks and geese besides a 12 gauge? Be honest with me.
Actually, it depends on your situation. To me, I'm not a 410 fan at all. Never have been. I know it's a big trend right now. I think it's really great for shooting snakes and squirrels. But, and I always go back and tell them, well, Benelli don't make a 410. Okay, there you go. But the 28 gauge is a gun that is basically as good, if not better, than the 20. If you really break it down, the 28 gauge is a serious gun. For you guys, like I hunt lots of rice fields. Lots of wind, lots of situations, or extreme cold. You get up there in some extreme cold in Minnesota and everything else. That 12 gauge is always going to outperform in those conditions. If you're in great conditions, you're going to sit with a 28 and 20. Like dove season, that's all I'll use is a 28 gauge because it's a different time of year. So you do have effects that's going to come into that. The 12 gauge is always going to be there. And plus you got an abundance of shells anywhere you go. If nothing else, you reach over and reach in your buddy's bag and take his shells, so that part always comes good. I don't see any of the subs taken over. Now I do see 3-inch taken over 3.5. We see that every day. We're seeing it on everything from patterns to, besides that, if you're getting beat up, your first shot, it's hard to hit your second shot. So, I think it's to each his own, but the 12 gauge is always going to be there. There's no doubt.
Skip, I want to transition, Skip, into the technicalities of what we're talking about, because I want people to understand I want to start with Rob on this, Skip, and then I want you to jump in here with the question for Compton. But Rob, I want you to picture a glass gun barrel on your shotgun, see-through 100%. I want you to explain to our listening audience what happens once that firing pin hits that primer. I want you to talk about the powder, the forcing cones. I want you to talk about the wad and the BBs, and then what happens as it travels down that barrel to the muzzle, reaching the choke tube, and then exiting that with the velocity and everything as it approaches down target to where your duck or your goose is, or whatever animal you're pursuing. I really want our audience to understand why it's so important to get that, to realize what is happening. So if they do say, well, my guns, I'm shooting low, like turkey season this year, Rob, I was shooting low and to the left. I went out on paper after my first hunt and I said, whoa, wonder what happened. It was just a little adjustment that I had to make in my sights. So with that being said, I want you to explain what happens if you had a clear barrel and we could watch that activation occur.
Well, we're real big on, first off, taking that forcing cone. So The gun goes boom, everything exits the shell. The shell opens, it goes through, it hits the forcing cone area, which basically, because of your European markets and everything else, where there's still different type wad cups, paper, whatever the case may be, that's actually supposed to form your shell, or form your shot rather. And what we're doing is we're removing it so you got a straight shot through your bore. It's letting your bore take over, so it's gaining more momentum to go in. It'll drop down on your shot cup now. It's dropping down onto the choke tube, and then it's constricting to wherever, whatever constriction you're using in choke. That's basically what's going on. As far as, people get into the forcing cone, non-forcing cone, in today's world, the most time we're using everything's American made here. We're using the plastic wad cups and stuff like that. And we find that it's more distortion than it does any good. So that's why we take it out. But I think another thing that you're talking there also is the tighter bores and stuff like that have longer shot string. I think that's something that you can go on from your glass barrel thoughts is taking it out a little farther and noticing the shot string part of it between your tight chokes and your more open. And I think that's something that people don't take into play. I think that's probably more important than what's going on there is actually when it does leave the barrel, that shot string. So if you got, put it back on a skeet shooter, like a long shot, they like tighter bores because their targets are left and right like this, where trap shooters is going straight away. They like a shorter shot string. So they got more pellets hitting on impact. So that's I hope I didn't cause a confusion there, but that's kind of more, it's not so much what it's doing when it comes through the barrel. It's when it hits that choke tubes part of it and exits where the real difference comes in.
Now, Compton, in a speech and debate format, when you hear Rob Roberts talk about the velocity and keeping that shot string, even throughout the entire barrel as it travels through and the forcing cones are removed, do you agree with this, Dan, in your studies of how that shell is activated through the barrel and the shooting system? Meaning, would you argue Rob's point, or do you say, yes, you're going to get the best shot string possible by removing the forcing cones and what Rob just talked about? Does Dan have us on mute?
Sorry, my dog was barking before, so
no problem.
I stopped her. I'm going to have to actually agree 100% with Rob because I am not the expert on forcing cones. I got other guys at the company that can probably do better than that. But I will agree on the shot string part, though, that it's definitely, it is user-based. And I know the ideal pattern that we see is, and you've heard this said over and over, is what we call a square load. If you have the length over diameter of a load, and it's a most uniform shape. The longer, Rob said, 410, shoot like crap. It's because you're leaning your pattern. You got all this shot coming out the barrel over this extended amount of time. If it all came out the barrel at the same time, you're going to probably get your most consistent pattern possible. So that tends to your shot string effect. By shortening up the shot string, you can have a more dense pellets on target. And most waterfowlers, if they're coming right in their face, that's what they're looking for. So if you maybe go a little tighter and on your passing shots, that's probably going to give you that longer string. It's going to help you there. So it really is situational. And I got to admit, I've learned more from listening to Rob on forcing cones than I ever knew myself. So.
Skip, I could keep going all day long. You know that. I'm so inquisitive about this stuff, but I know you're a nut too about it. So Skip, go ahead and take over.
I just wanted to agree with Rob that I had a great friend who worked at Guns and Ammo. He's a talented wing shooter, Peyton Miller. And he always said, the 410 is a stunt. The 28 gauge is a murderous weapon, and so is a 20 gauge. And that corroborated everything I saw in the timber. I had it with a bunch of guys, and that was my aha moment with the 28 gauge. We were hunting timber. We don't shoot at the birds until they're at least within 30 yards underneath the tree canopy. And we were shooting a heavy shot, the original heavy shot, pure heavy shot 28. And I was just really apprehensive about using a 28 gauge and couldn't believe how it just mopped these birds. They'd fall so dead if they landed in a tree limb crotch. They wouldn't even wiggle their way out. The dogs loved it. And there were so much fewer cripples. These are big greenheads. Shooting limits of them east of Kansas City. It was a real eye-opener, but there was a couple guys shooting 410s, and even with the tungsten loads, we'd have to burn a $3 shell to kill their wounded ducks again and again and again. It was an eye-opener for me. They were shooting mostly bismuth, actually. But I think this whole thing about the 12 versus the sub gauges and everything, it's totally situational. One gun launch I went on 2 years ago, we were asking if they came out with a killer new semi-automatic. It was a Savage Renegade. We asked if they were going to make a 20 gauge because we all liked the gun and how soft kicking and easy to shoot it was. And they're like, maybe at some point, but skip the even though it's trendy now and everyone's talking about it, there's still 85% of duck guns that are sold are, I think that's the number, don't hold me to that, are 12 gauges. And that's to all the listeners out there, a lot of them just getting into duck hunting, you got to probably decide what you want to shoot before you buy your gun. If you want to go to a 20 gauge or a 28, you need to know that you should probably buy bismuth or tungsten. And if you're willing to make that expense, you're going to enjoy a lighter gun. You can hold a whole box of 28 gauge shells in your hand. It's so nice in your coat pocket compared to a giant box of 3.5 inch 12s. But if you're value minded and you're going to shoot steel, you need a 12 gauge, you really do, or you're going to have to limit your shots to 20, 25 yards to be really ethical and to make up for when you shoot him where he cheats, not where he eats. There's not much margin of error with steel. And the new 12 gauge steel loads are just murderous. And some of the affordable ones, I think I shot that Winchester, it's called Snow Goose, and it was like $16 a box. They sent me a case and I'm like, well, I'll shoot it if I have to, or where we know we're going to get birds in close. But they sent a bunch of it, and I took it on a party hunt where I was bringing the ammo with family, and I was shocked. It just murdered the geese. As long as you kept it under 35 yards, it mopped them. It was amazing. And I'm like, given that, why would you want to go to a $3, $4 shell? Bismuth has exploded and bridged the gap. It brought it somewhere between steel and all the super performance like tungsten loads. But if you're going to shoot steel, shoot a 12 gauge, and 85% of shooters out there are shooting 12 gauges still. I get a secondary weapon as a 28 or a 20, and they are murderous with the new loads, but it ain't cheap.
Yeah, I can corroborate that too from our waterfowl sales. At Federal, it's 80% is 12 gauge, 15 to 18% 20 gauge, and then 410 and 28 fill out the rest. And that's almost across the board for whether you're talking lead, waterfowl or not. And you do see a little bit, turkey is where you'll see sub gauges really, really starting to grow. But what you said about bismuth, it really does bridge the gap. And for people who are new, don't understand, there was a time when everyone shot lead at ducks, and lead is just denser, right? So it's denser than steel. So you can shoot it at a lower velocity and you're not getting, whatever goes forward, you're feeling come back. So that's what's hitting you on the shoulder, right? So to make steel more lethal because of denser, you're really jacking the speed up. Well, now you're feeling that on your shoulder as well. Bismuth and and tungsten, like, get more density. You can shoot at a lower velocity and you're not getting hit as hard. So just for anyone newer out there, but yeah, bismuth is just I would say bismuth died, 15 years ago, 12 years ago, and it's just made this resurgence and come back. So it's really cool. I shot mostly bismuth all last season. I was really happy with it.
Do you talk to me, Compton, about what you just ended that thought with? When you go out and you're taking the product out with you to test, what are guys like you and Rob looking for in R&D when you're actually, I remember when we went on the snow goose hunt and we were reporting back with the results we were getting at, but what about before that? Like what does somebody like you and Eric look for? Because there's got to be more than just the knockdown power is my point, right? There's got to be consistency. There's got to be what's it doing with the gun? What's it doing with the heat? How hot are they getting? What's going on with the barrel? What are some of the things that you could tell the listening audience of what research is going into this before you go to market with these loads? Because they are high dollar, they are high powered, but what can the consumer be rest assured of like, hey, this was really thought out, to the T before it went to market?
Sure. So every product that we develop, when we start from ground zero, it depends on what you want it to be, and that's part of my job is I set the requirements that the engineers develop to. But like the basic for everything that we do is going to be shot. We call shoot it at hot and cold, and we're shooting for pressure and velocity. And pressure is how much pressure is building up in that gun to a peak level before everything starts to release and the round goes off. And then velocity, what are we targeting? So we go down to minus 30 degrees and plus 130 degrees Fahrenheit, and all kinds of crazy stuff can happen to gunpowder and plastics between that range. And if you're going to operate good at those fringes, like I said before, you're going to do pretty well at the middle. And something like kind of a side note, something we're really looking for in our powders going forward is temp stability. So if you ever like shot a rifle is a good example. You shoot a rifle on an 80-degree day, and then depending on your powder, go out and shoot at a 5-degree day, you might see a 7 to 8 inch drop depending on your cartridge. Guns are the same thing. And I've always heard, as like people say, as it gets colder and the geese are more downed up, you got to hit them harder. I think part of it is that your powder was dropping in pressure. You're losing velocity as you get colder with some of the traditional powders out there. So we shoot everything at hot and cold. And then it just really depends on the product. What is, everything comes back to what would the customer be looking for? So a duck hunter is going to want a really consistent pattern and probably as many pellets as we can give them within a 30-inch circle as possible. So like with a bismuth load, we would shoot it and we would say, how are we comparing to steel? How are we doing within that 30-inch circle? And then we'll work on the target. Like, do we want to, Sammy is going to say your minimum load should be a 70% at a full choke, in a 40-inch circle. We're getting 70% pellets. Well, on a waterfowl load, we may want that a little tighter than 70. So we may shoot for 75 or 80, 80 even, depending on what the load is. So it's always P&V, it's always patterns, and then we function test everything, even when we set up on the loader. So every time we set up the load, we're going to shoot pressure, velocity, and then we'll run it through function testing as well, which means we take a battery of guns and we cycle those around through those guns and make sure they eject every time and they're not hanging up inside the gun.
Rob, when you hear Dan talk like that, very well said, Compton, is what happens now, Rob, when you get that ammo that Dan's talking about that just went through that entire research and development phase? You have it now, but now at the same time, Rob, you have hundreds of people sending their guns to you all times of the year. Turkey, you get loaded up, and then waterfowl season comes and they want this. What happens once that gun's unboxed at Rob Roberts to ensure that the shooting system is going to be consistent with what Compton just explained with the ammo research?
Well, he's 100% spot on. People don't realize that a shotgun does have a variable there on conditions. We build rifles. We shoot lots of rifles. If it's a 100-degree day, it's a lot different if it's a 30. Shotguns are not as drastic, but it is there. In old days, people would send their guns in like for turkeys, and it'd be in January, February time of the year, people send a gun in to have it test patterned and everything. We would actually set up in a building and put space heaters on the ammunition to keep it at a certain temperature. So when we went outside to shoot this, the ammo was at that. We warn people, even in the duck world, bring your ammo inside with you. You can leave your gun, everything else out in the truck when it's 2 below zero. Bring your ammo inside. And so it does. Your patterns go to crap when it's real hot or low. So it's and you're not going to be hunting in perfect 60-degree weather all the time either. So we do look at that also. And then when you are patterning these guns, we do notice we always go for patterns first. We if it's patterning, you're killing, and that's what we say. And we try to shorten them down a little bit, even into the 20 and 24-inch range, like on ducks, because that's we'll tighten the chokes or whatever the case may be to bring it into that. So when we're testing, not so much, he's still doing a little bit of load development there. We know they've already done their part. Now what we want to do is we want to take their load development and put it to where it's in the gun for the pattern development. Now we want it in there because we know it's doing what they say it does. Now we got to make it to where it's killing for you when you use it. And that's kind of where we go for. We want accuracy and patterns is what we look for.
I understand the analogy, Compton, you first and then Rob, of, well, to each their own, and it depends on the shooter. What's the best all-around duck load, Dan Compton, when you're talking about
around,
just 35 yards are in? Let's just say that they cooperate that day and it's bluebird sky, sunshine, like Rob Roberts and myself absolutely love it. Skip is more of a low ceiling, gray, overcast. He's just like really kind of mopey, so he likes that kind of day. Me and Rob, we're excited as hell every day. We want the sunshine on us, and they're to each their own, right? Some people think that Skip's day is what you call quote unquote a ducky day. I learned in Arkansas almost 2 decades ago that they don't want to ever see a cloud, right? They want sunshine. So what is the best all-around load? When it's sunny, those mallards are feet down in your decoy spread and you're shooting them at 35 yards or closer. What would you tell the consumer? Go get this box.
I would say go get 1.25 ounces, like Black Cloud number 3s is what I would go with. And you can make the argument of 2s, and those 2s sell almost identically now. So the market is kind of back, justifying that. But 1.25 ounces around 1,400, 15 feet per second in a number 2 shot or a number 3 shot is going to give you plenty of lethality at 35 yards or in, and plenty of pellets hitting the duck, and it's going to crush them. So for me, it's a 3-inch 1.25 ounces around 1,450, 1,500 feet per second.
Rob,
number
go.
2 or 3.
Rob, you same question.
I agree with, I shoot tons and tons of Black Cloud myself, but I'm going to tell you, if you got ducks that are all staying at 30, 35 yards, blue box, federal, 1.25 ounces, 2s. I'm a 2s guy anyway. I shoot 2s on everything except TSS, and it is hard to beat. It's just great patterns with that stuff, and it's Black Cloud's almost too good at 35 yards. I'll put it that way.
Skip, do you agree with what Rob just said? Are you a 2 man? And Skip, please, before you answer, Skip, please understand, I was just kidding. I know you're always in a good mood. I was just trying to talk about like the different ducky days, right? I want sunshine. You might want clouds. But Skip, what's your go-to load?
I learned to kill a ton of birds under both conditions because I lived in Seattle for 15 years, went to Washington State. And the east side of the state is complete sunshiny, mallards in the sun with your buddies, busting banded birds. It was incredible when I really got into it in the mid-90s. But on the west side, the mopey, melancholy, overcast weather all the time on the west side, I learned to love the fact that if you found a little X with just, sometimes just a dozen great big Western Washington honkers with chests this wide on any flooded pasture or sheet water, you could get in there the next day and they might not come. It was completely variable when they come, but when those foggy days when they can't even see you until they're 60 yards in and it's too late, they can't pick you apart, and you can just give them a few clucks and bring them right in. I love both weather patterns for hunting those birds, but I'm absolutely a 2s guy day in and day out, because out west here and so many places I hunt, like Kansas and Nebraska, geese are often making a celebrity appearance even when you're duck hunting, and so the 2s are better. I haven't shot 3s that much for that reason, but shooting steel, I always like 2s because you might get that passing shot at a honker at 40 yards and swing that barrel all the way down his neck and keep it going past his lips. And it's a really neat splash when a great big bird lands in the water like that.
I like the visualization.
The tungsten or any of that shot, that changes the game. I like 6s and any of that tungsten combo stuff. Even at a 28 gauge, it's unbelievable, the penetration.
Let's end it like this, guys, because we've said a lot, and it's always such an education when we talk to guys like Rob and Dan. Skip, we're very lucky to have access to guys like this. Our industry is lucky to have people like Rob Roberts and Dan Compton that get it, that are putting out the absolute best there is. And again, there's several manufacturers out there. Skip's mentioned some today. You can get all of this information in the new gear issue. Federal's in here. Rob Roberts' choke tubes are in here. Skip Knowles' name is in here. He's the editor-in-chief. He knows what he's talking about. Dan Compton, educate our listening audience, and you did touch on this, and then I want Rob to tell us. How would you tell us to go about getting ammo? It's August. There's guys that are already killing Canada geese in North Dakota right now. There's guys that I've seen that have gotten the shot, and they're up north of the border in Manitoba and Ontario and Saskatchewan and Alberta, and they're getting their camps ready for the opener in early September. Dove loads are even hard to come by right now, Dan Compton. Give us a little bit of a tutorial on what you would do as a consumer in our country right now after they read about all this and get excited. How the heck do we get it, Dan?
I would stay on, if you got your local dealer, your local gun shop that you work with day in and day out, or your specialty retail stores in your area, I would hit them up first. And I'd become really good buddies with whoever stocks the ammo aisle. And I would find out what days are you getting your shipments. And then I'd say, I'm going to be here on Monday at 3:00. Now, if that doesn't work for you, I always start with the local retailer, because you never know what they're going to have. And they may have we do our best to project our shipments out to our dealers for when they're going to get them. But the second best, and in this age, it's online. Online is going to be probably your best chance at getting ammo when it comes in. And there's a couple of big dealers out there. We support a lot of Rogers is one of our big Rogers Sporting Goods in
Missouri.
Sorry. In Missouri. Sorry. is one of our biggest. Reed Sporting Goods in Minnesota both have big online presences, and they're going to have they're going to be one of your best shots, and they're often running, good shipping specials as well. So you got to be vigilant with your retailer. You got to be vigilant with your online retailer. And I've told people, I work events, all over the country, and people tell me, boy, I can't find ammo. But last year when I went to the store, they had 20 cases. So I bought it all. Your buddy might have ammo in his garage that you're going to have to borrow from or hit him up. Or if you have that 20 cases and your buddies are talking about how they can't find ammo, you might have to help them out a little bit just until things start to stabilize a little more.
Rob?
And I got one more too. You can always go to federalpremium.com, and we don't necessarily have everything in stock on there, but we try to have a certain amount reserved so that day to day you can at least pick up a couple boxes at a time.
Thank you, Compton. Rob, how does the reader of the Wildfowl Giant Gear Issue go about getting your services? Can we go online and build out a gun and then send it to you? Do we buy the gun from you, or do we have to ship you the gun? Rob, how does it work?
They just pick up the phone, call. We've got guys there that'll help. I'm happy to help. We don't actually sell the guns as we do. We work with so many different Benelli dealers, for example, that we're not really a Benelli dealer. So we don't want to be going up against any of these guys. We'd rather do work for them. So we would assume you go to your local dealer, get the gun you like, whether Benelli, Browning, Beretta, whoever it is, Remington, whatever the case may be, and send it to us. And our guys will be happy to explain to them just exactly what to do. Through this thing, most people have been out of work. We've hired a new guy yesterday. I mean, our place is up and going. We're starting to expand enough that we're getting quicker turnaround times to get your stuff out. So yeah, just pick up the phone, give us a call.
Well, rest assured, here's where we are. We are hunters. We are shooters. We are gun owners. We are Second Amendment supporters. But we also are providers. We are teachers. We are mentors. This is a big deal in this culture. Mentoring is a big deal. And I want people in our listening audience to understand how important it is to put safety and respect for what Rob and Dan and Skip and I have been talking about. First and foremost, it's easy to say we're a hunter. It's easy to say that we're a great duck caller or a great turkey killer. But are we really doing everything in our power to protect this privilege? We are not entitled to any of the stuff that we talked about today, except our right to bear arms, which is protected by our Constitution of the United States and our Second Amendment. But we do not have the right to hunt. We are not entitled to hunt, Skip Knowles. This is a privilege. This is a blessing that we are able to wake up in this unbelievable country with freedoms provided by our military and our first responders, protecting our country, our rights, our communities, our kids. Skip, we have to take responsibility that we are going to do this with dignity, respect for the resource, compassion for these animals that we pursue. In a day and age where it's so easy to get on our phones and upload a picture to get what we call quote unquote likes, I do not personally like seeing a coyote suffer. I don't like seeing snow geese just thrown like they're, candy from a vendor being thrown out, or peanuts at a baseball field. That's an animal that gave up his or her life for us as hunters to provide a bounty for our friends and family. With the technology available today and the products that companies like Federal Premium and Rob Roberts Custom Gun Works are putting out there, we owe it to ourselves to become proficient and confident with these shooting systems. So when we do point that bead at a duck or an approaching Canada goose or speck or snow or turkey or alligator or coyote or bobcat, I don't care what it is. We do it with dignity and compassion for that animal, Skip, because at the end of the day, it's going to be one of us in the wrong light that gets this privilege revoked. And I don't want to see it revoked, because when I see the look on my 10-year-old daughter's face when a canvasback does what it does, or a coyote approaches, or a turkey gobbles, it lights me up just as much as it does her. When I see my 10-year-old nephew Chase harvest animals and understand the gratitude that is paid forward to them, and then the look on his face when he tastes that animal on our table, there's no better feeling in the world. There is no better or cooler lifestyle in the world than to be an American hunter. And I just want to make sure that all of us listening do it the right way. I'm not telling you how to hunt or what to use. If you want to shoot a turkey with a bow, go on and do it. I feel that turkeys are one animal that should be shot with a shotgun. But who am I to tell you how to hunt? If it's ethical and it's legal, then do it with dignity and respect. Rob Roberts, does all of that make sense to you, sir?
100%, because when getting your skills and everything that you get, that you take a kid and learns how to hunt and how to do it the right way and give respect back to it, is also a survival skill that may be coming in this crazy world that we're in. It may be what saves their lives somewhere down the road, is to know how to do this stuff and do it right.
I agree, Rob Roberts. Dan Compton, when you hear the words that just came out of my mouth, please tell the listening audience how important it is to fly this flag the right way, especially in times like Rob Roberts just mentioned, Dan. We have to showcase this culture in the right light. I'm going to let you end it, Skip, but Dan, please talk on that for a second.
Yeah, I'd say two things, come about this. So you're out there in an Instagram era, whatever you could do out in the field and you're posting out there is out there for everybody. So do it right, but demonstrate it right as well. And, we're at a generation where, hunters have kind of been on decline, but there's new hunters learning, and they're learning how to hunt from YouTube or Instagram or whoever. And they're going to model and do exactly what we do. I'm not a huge social media presence, but, you live it every day, Chad. And, so do it right. And so that you're given that great example for the next generation who may be learning from how we do it. And then secondly, I think it's our responsibility that when you go hunting, take somebody new with you and show them how to do it the right way. And then when you do it, take them home and show them how to cook that duck or that deer or that turkey, so that they're like, man, that was awesome. I didn't just shoot it out of the sky, but I learned this new skill, like Rob talked about, how to take care of myself, and I could eat it and enjoy it. So that's where I'll leave it.
I love it, Dan Compton. I love the ideology of a provider. Skip Knowles, you are the ultimate provider, not just with the bounty on your friends and family table, but you provide us with all of this knowledge that we can keep at our fingertips all season long. You could put this in a protective binder and carry it with you and refer to this all year long. I've called it the Duck and Goose Hunter's Bible. Skip, take us out of our Choke Tubes and Loads podcast with Rob Roberts and Dan Compton. Skip Knowles, what do you got on your mind?
I just love it that you guys showed up and participated. I really appreciate it. And we do take so much pleasure in creating this giant gear issue, hopefully to simplify some decisions for people, especially those new to the sport, see what's out there and get some good ideas. And there's just something magic about this big gear issue. Chad would really help you, appreciate you helping us celebrate it. There's something about the heft of a print publication and landing with a whump on your doorstep. Wildfowl's greatly expanded. We have a new full-time digital editor, and we're blowing up on social and reaching across every platform now. But there's something about that print issue that's just kind of magical. And when people look at it now and they're wondering if they can get that ammunition, a really cool angle that I thought of recently, my friends were talking about, Skip, if we can't get more ammunition, when you come out here, we've got like the best dove hole north of Mexico. It's just amazing. We all get excited about it. We don't even have to hunt it on the opener. We can go out at any time and it's good. We're blessed with that way. But my friends are like, I'm going to give my kid one shotgun shell at a time because we just don't have the ammunition. And I thought, my immediate reaction was, that really sucks, because we're all shooting little pumps and, fancy semi-autos now. And I thought something went ding in my head. And I'm like, one, for our conversation today, that makes the importance of a good choke and the right load that much more important when you only shoot once. And I thought, you know what? That's how my dad taught me. First of all, I had a Harrington and Richardson single shot 20 gauge when I was a little boy. And he would give me one shell at a time so that I didn't get trigger happy or wasted or anything like that. And that's a good reminder. I think it's probably not a bad idea to take a kid out, give him one shell at a time, and get him to try and make that one shot really count and have a great time in the field out there this year. I'm really optimistic about it, and I think we're going to do it just that way, not just because of the ammo shortage, but because it's a proper way to teach someone to respect their one opportunity and the resource and try and make a clean kill. So I'll leave it at that, but thank you guys for participating.
Rob Roberts, thank you very much for being here, my man. Any closing words?
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you guys. And and it's so much fun just to sit and listen to, from one aspect to the other. It really helpful. And I enjoy you letting me be a part of it.
Well, we love having you, Rob. You're a master. We truly appreciate our association with you and your brand. Check out Rob Roberts on Instagram at Rob Roberts Custom Gunworks. His website is so beneficial to go on and learn his services. And I am speaking from experience. I've visited his place in Arkansas, and I have several of his products. And I'm telling you, I don't look anywhere else when it comes to being on target every single time. Thank you, Rob Roberts. Dan Compton, Federal Premium. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for being here. Any closing words, Compton?
No, I appreciate you having us on. It's good to know all you guys, and hopefully run into each other in the field as well.
I want to come to Minnesota for so many things, but most of all, probably walleye. I really need somebody to ship me, overnight me some walleye or crappie. I just need some fish because all we have out here is trout, and I'm probably not going to eat that. So, Compton, keep that in mind next time you and Kelvington and old Lewis from Revenge of the Nerds, Mr. Jason Nash, are out catching those walleye. I could really use some in my belly. Thank you all so much for listening to another episode of the Fowl Life Podcast 2021 Wildfowl Giant Gear Issue podcast series. Get it now on your newsstands. Wildfowl is so awesome. I've said it before. If you go into a duck hunting lodge and it's not in there, you might want to turn around and find a new duck hunting lodge. That might be a little drastic and dramatic, but it is true. If they don't have this, I don't know if I would hunt there. Peace out, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the podcast. Tom Jake, hit that button. This song is called My Fowl Life. The band is 2 AM Logic.